Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Good morning also from my side. We start the second day with a super exciting panel about, airspace modernization. I think we heard a lot yesterday from the panelists from the cities and not only also from the industries. What are the challenges ahead? What do we need to do next to make, the drone a real reality, a scale operation, and many people said, of course, it's SORA, we all know that, but after that is about airspace modernization, access to airspace. So I'm super excited to have here these great panels to talk about that. And of course, I'm Lorenzo Murzilli. I already introduced myself yesterday. For those who don't know me, again, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Murzilli Consulting and Drone Talks. And I would like to ask you panelists to introduce yourself. Maybe Colin, you can start, and we go all the way to the end.
Yeah, thanks, Lorenzo. So good morning, Colin Chesterton. I am the manager of airspace modernisation delivery within the UK CAA.
Thank you.
Oh, do you want me to?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, okay. So just a very quick intro, and so we were asked to produce some slides which are up there. So and the theme of the panel is around how we're winning the challenges. So I was about to jump into some of the examples of how we think we're winning the challenge, but from an airspace modernisation perspective, I often sit in front of these sort of panels, and I know my colleagues do, and we say airspace is big and it's complex. And if we go back a slide. So actually, I thought it's a really good opportunity to explain what I mean when I say it's big and complex, and actually put the context around that. So our role as a regulator around airspace, and specifically around things like the airspace change process, we're actually looking at balancing demands of 5-6 different stakeholders. So we're not just looking at the new user community, and actually, we are looking at the space. We're looking at general aviation, as well as MOD, commercial flights, and societal needs. And then also we're working in the big legislative and strategic alignment context. So I'm not going to go through them one by one, but there is 5 different state policies that we're working to, and then there's some international alignment. So that's the big. My next slide is the complex. So actually, as I run through them, and I think this is the first time I've written this down, and hopefully it's useful for people going forward. And again, I'm not going to
take a photo of that.
I'm not going to run through these, and I'm happy to share the slides. But just through going through this process, and thank you, Lorenzo, for asking us this question, because it's forced me to go back one. What is the challenge from an airspace perspective? So I've counted so far, and I'm happy for people to correct me where I'm wrong on this, but there are 5, within the UK, we've got 5 different primary legislation pieces that we have to run through as we do airspace modernisation. We've got 15 secondary pieces of legislation. We've got alignment to, I think I counted 7 different national and international strategies that all feature airspace elements. And then lastly, I think I counted 19 further sort of government policies around Jet Zero, etc., etc. So that's the challenge, and hopefully that's useful as we go forward, because this is what we are trying to deal with. And we could ask the question, actually, is the challenge trying to reduce that down? That's maybe for other people to answer. But how are we winning the challenge? I think from a UK perspective, we've got the AMS, that's set our North Star. So we're looking at that final piece, but actually it's things like the Future of Flight Action Plan, where we've got some short-term tangibles that are actually starting to build the momentum for the UK. Let's start to sort of focus, not just the CAA, because I think it's easy for me to sit from the CAA perspective and only focus on airspace, but I really recognise that actually it's one of the components that's going to make this happen. But from an airspace perspective, we are focusing on things like Future of Flight. We've got our strategic outcomes. They're giving us the momentum and drive. So I suppose to sum up, there is a challenge. The question was, how are we winning? My question was, are we winning? I think we are. I think we're starting to see some traction. I think we're starting to see movement. Not far from here, we're now starting to see the first blood delivery samples that I started yesterday. So I think there is that. There's a long way to go, and the only way we achieve that is through continued cooperation, coordination, and communication across groups like this, but the wider context of all of those different areas that I've got on that slide there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Larissa.
Thank you, Lorenzo. So my name is Larissa Haas. I'm working for the Swiss Federal Office of Civil Aviation in the Division for Aviation Policy. So this is basically the ministerial part of the Swiss CAA. And in that division, I'm responsible for the coordination of policy-making processes and regulations for drones, and U-Space. And so this is why I put that picture also next to my head. And this is the future U-Space airspace volume we intend to implement in the middle of the city of Zurich. Probably we can talk about that a little bit later in that panel, because I think I have some success stories and lessons learned to share with you from a governance perspective. But maybe just as a general remark from a Swiss perspective, looking at the different governance layers. So I think policymaking or implementing policies in Switzerland is super challenging because we are a small country and a highly federated country. So that means we have, here you see about 2,100 different municipalities. All of them act independently based on national law, regional law, and they all have their own roles and responsibilities, and of course also power in implementing policies. And this, I guess, makes the governance between the different layers in Switzerland quite tricky, but of course also interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul.
Good morning to everybody. My name is Paul Kennedy. I'm from the Irish Aviation Authority. Similar to the FOCA and the UK CAA, we're responsible for aviation and some space stuff as well, as it happens. So my role is head of aviation infrastructure. So what exactly does that mean? So I have responsibility for airspace, instrument flight procedures, airspace structures, for air traffic management, air navigation services, aerodromes, and U-Space. The actual unmanned aircraft systems themselves sit in a different department. My colleague Enda Walsh, you may have met yesterday, looks after that particular division. Obviously, there are key strategic objectives that we move on. So looking at the presentation by my colleagues here, particularly the regulatory challenges and the mental legislation, obviously it's a highly regulated industry putting aircraft into the air, be they manned or unmanned. So there's a lot of requirement that comes along with it. That can be very challenging as well. However, if the question is, are we winning? I think the way we gauge if we're winning is by the number of projects that we're allowing to happen in initially segregated airspace, learning the lessons from that, and then bringing it out to a wider context. Possibly these will come up, but just in Ireland at the moment, and I was playing around with ChatGPT trying to get diagrams and stuff like that. So sorry about that. I got fed up after a while. But there's a number of projects that are running in Ireland, and I think the important thing to talk about these ones, the first three, is that they come with funding from the European Union, and I think there's a call out at the moment for U-Space as well. So the innovation is being invested upon, and the opportunities are there for people to come along, get that grant, and see if their projects actually work as well. In Dublin City at the moment, we have a drone partnership between the City Council. I think they spoke yesterday. Research Ireland, which is a new governmental body set up to invest in disruptive industries. The IAA ourselves, and with some of the universities looking to parse technology together. And of course, we have delivery services. My sister is lucky enough to live in one of the areas of Dublin where she can order a cup of coffee and have it within 3 minutes. And then we have some cross-border within the EU. Wing are doing some medical deliveries. Their authorization is under Finland. So we can see that there's the cross-border and the international aspect to it as well. So gathering this evidence brings us forward. But I think one of the key things, and I think it was on one of the CAA slides, is the societal acceptance as well. So from these practical activities that are taking place, we've got feedback from people, the irritation factor from people, like, yes, it's nice getting a cup of coffee, but your 10 other neighbours are not too happy with you about that. So we've learnt about, merely seeing a drone and the noise level of a drone mightn't be the same as a lorry or an articulated truck going down your road, but it's more irritating for whatever reason. It's the same with manned aircraft as well. So we're taking that on board, and we're looking at the levels that aircraft actually, the UAS operate at, can we push them higher before going down, just to get that buy-in from people as well, which is very important for this industry to actually develop. That's it in a nutshell. Happy to talk about that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mariel.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Marielies Becker. I work for Berlin Partner for Business and Technology, which is the Berlin-based economic development agency. I work there as an innovation manager for the aerospace sector, so I'm not only responsible for the drone topics, but also for classic aviation and space topics. Berlin Partner as such is a classic economic development agency, but we have a very strong focus on innovative topics. So we have a high range of innovation managers working in different fields. In my case, the drone field is one of the strong areas of my daily work. So I work on the strategic and innovative project of the drone topics for the city of Berlin. That drones are one of the fields that is developing, and there are many questions around it. Is shown because the Senate Office of Senate Department of Economic Affairs, Energy and Public Enterprise, I had to read that because the words are always very long in Berlin, did set up own funding for Berlin-based projects. And they decided to go for regulatory sandbox projects. I know somebody yesterday said we need to get out of the sandbox, but I'm very happy that we are now allowed to get into the sandbox in Berlin as well. We have 10 funded projects in this call, and 2 of them are drone topics, which shows that this drone focus is very important now. We have one project doing Airspace Berlin. It's mainly organized by Colors, startup Colors, and they are having a look on the sustainable last mile logistics and data-based drone projects. So that is the number one. And the second one is a topic on hydrogen drones. I know that they are more of a niche market. Most of them are electric, but we are having a company that is doing bigger hydrogen drones for heavy lifting drones and prospectively air taxis as well. And they are looking into how can we certify these drones with hydrogen, what infrastructure do we need, and what are the regulations we need to take care of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sergio.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Drone Talks and Murzilli, for inviting us to be here. I come from the Technology Park of Fuerteventura. I'm Sergio Díaz, and I work there as a responsible of the special programs and strategic projects. So Fuerteventura, I put a picture for you to, well, I assume most of you know that Fuerteventura and the Canaries have good weather and good beaches, and many people go on vacation there. But if you could go back a little bit, yeah. So Technology Park of Fuerteventura is a public entity that depends on the local government of the Cabildo of Fuerteventura, and at the same time of the government of the Canary Islands, and yes, to the next one. And in the Canaries, especially in Fuerteventura, we strongly depend on tourism. So we wanted to diversify the local economy. So we built this program, which is called Canarias Geo-Innovative Program 2030, in order to diversify local economy, attract and anchor technology-driven companies that create quality employment and retain our talent. No? Because most of the people that study there, they live for islands and they go to the mainland or to other countries. So we wanted to build something there that attract investment in a long term. In order to do so, we have built, well, the Geo-Innovation program is the framework, and it has many pieces. One of them is this that I'm showing on the right side. This is the Canary stratospheric for HAPS and US. This is an actual image, it's not a render, it's a zenithal view of it. It has a runway of 900 meters, and well, it has some hangars, etc., and auxiliary equipment on it. So it is mainly thought for the operation of high altitude platforms, which is commonly known as HAPS, but also for drone operations. And on the other side, we have also this building, which we call the ISEP building, and will be the brain of our project, because all the data that will be gathered by the drones and satellites and all their sources of data will be transferred to this center, and all that data process will be translated into solution and applications. So it has a main control center, simulation rooms, training rooms, etc. So the total investment for these two infrastructure is more than 20 million euros, actually. And I also wanted to show you some of the projects we are working on right now. The first one is a proper project, 22 million euros. It is a innovative public procurement with the aim of the creation of innovative solutions in biodiversity, security, emergencies, and other public services through aerospace platforms. So from Fuerteventura, we plan to deploy drone missions and HAPS missions in order to develop these innovative solutions in those terms. It is being developed by Telespacio and Pegasus joint venture. We are also participating in You Welcome, which is a CESAR project. Yesterday, our colleague Daniel presented it. It's led by Aerocontrol in a consortium level and by Enaire in a Spanish cluster. And we also are working on Retect for Can project, which aims the monitoring and inventory of forests, prevention and early warning of forest fires. And there is a consortium of 6 companies. The main one is Skydweller, which is a startup. It is the previous solar impulse aircraft. And they plan to do their operations for this from Fuerteventura, from our infrastructure. Also our laser, which they have a lot of experience with LiDAR solutions.
Excellent, thank you very much. I'm super excited because every one of you mentioned projects that we want to talk about. Because one of the things that I think from the last years, what we all realized is that how do you win the challenge, right? We always said you need to speak between all these different layers, right? You have to go from the national layer to the local, all the way down to the city and back, And the challenge was always like, how do you speak, right? Because there are not real frameworks that allow you to actually communicate. And what I'm listening from all of you is that the way you have found, and I'm really curious to dig into that, is we create projects that bring all of the parties together, and with those projects we move forward and we learn. So as you kind of everybody of you mentioned some of those, maybe Colin, we can start with you. Like what have you learned from this project? What are specific examples that you can provide us? Like this is what we are doing, and this is what we are learning, and now we're winning the challenge.
So I referenced the APM project, I suppose, and from my perspective, that has taken probably longer than we would like. I think what we've learned is the first thing we need to do for any project, and so actually I'll go back one. I think the only way we make change is focusing effort on individual projects. I think sometimes people like the CAA can focus on trying to get the big holistic long-term strategy in place, but actually the way you get momentum and drive is to actually focus on, right, what's a real tangible. I think the bit that we've learned and from our perspective is the first thing we need to do is look at what of all of those things that I listed there is suitable for the operation you're proposing and what's not, where are the policy gaps, what needs to be filled, and then how do you mobilise yourself to fill that. And then if I'm looking at the stakeholder perspective, speaking with Louisa yesterday, we are one of her stakeholders. She has that framework with the NHS, she has that with the local city council, and actually she's been the conduit to that. But I think from a regulator's perspective, from a government perspective, how do we make them links better? I don't have the answers right now, but I think the recognition is that we've got to make that communication and coordination, we've got to improve that so that every project that applies is not taking a 12 to 18 month walkthrough because people don't have the right contacts in the right place, people are asking the wrong questions. I think we're doing that as we go, we're learning as we go, and I think most organisations are admitting that. But I think we do need to show progress that we are learning. So we are, not just we'll make the same mistakes over and over again. And actually, I'm confident that we are.
Excellent. And Larissa, from a use space perspective, I think you are also being engaged not only with the industry, of course, which is part of but also in Switzerland with the canton, with the cities. Like, what are you learning from those interactions, more at the governmental point of view?
Honestly, we also learned a lot from traditional aviation. That's quite surprising. But so we tend to say a lot that, traditional aviation, airspace, that's a national thing. It's a national regulation. But in fact, public needs or societal needs also need to be addressed when it comes to infrastructure, for example. And so we try to address use-based topics, or even, I guess, the UIS geographical zones implementation is also a very good example where we learned a lot. We try to organize that via workshops. So we went to local authorities, sat together, discussed with them, and we gave them the responsibility to come up with geographical zones. But we were aware that there's a potential risk that local authorities in Switzerland want to solve all the challenges they see with regards to drones through UAS geographical zones. So it was also a huge education effort. We had long discussions, but with that collaborative effort, I guess we were able to come up with quite a reasonable and pragmatic drone map with different geographical zones that also allow drones flying and allow for innovation. So I think that really that collaborative workshop approach really helped us also to take everybody on board from a local and also regional level. And by the way, I find it super interesting and fascinating what you are doing in Ireland with the Dublin City Council. So I've learned that you also try to implement a new approach, maybe, and you know it better than I do, but called geodesign, which is normally used for spatial planning. And you try now to implement that or to transfer that in the UAS geographical zones implementation discussion, which is super interesting. And I'm curious to see how this discussion will evolve in Ireland with that regard. Super fascinating.
Let's dig into that. I mean, I'm also curious because I mean the Dublin City Council kind of example keeps coming like as a good example of like all different layers collaborating. Also with the industry, which is putting pressure on you. So we're curious to learn really like what are you doing and what are your learnings really? How do you make?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot going on. So what I was going to say, it's for this to work, it's a matter of appetite and motivation. So we're an aviation regulator, manned aviation. So we're traditional in how we did things, and really we recognise that there was a new industry developing, but again things move relatively slowly with a regulator as well. So when it comes to the motivation, it was not just a top-down approach. It was bottom-up as well. It was really the entrepreneurs coming in. They see a business opportunity, and they're really driving us. And they're actually the ones that are reaching out to the local communities, reaching out to the local government, and saying, "Look, this is a really good idea for things." So then you get everybody on board, and what our role then becomes is to allow this to happen in a safe environment and to enable it to take place. We listen to ideas that seem a little bit strange to us at first, but we've gotten used to the way things work and the technologies. And then I think with the funding that comes in from Europe as well, that it helps get these projects off the ground, and we see the feedback from it as well. It's exciting for the universities as well, that they have technologies that they want to develop. So they, outside of kind of traditional ways of doing things, they have been developing these technologies, and then they want to try and implement them in an operational environment. So that is where we bring together all of the stakeholders. So we have the universities, and we have the operators, the local government as well, and then us as the regulator to try and make sure that it all sits within a nice, safe regulatory framework as well. So for us, it's a collaborative approach. You'll probably hear that word quite a lot, and have heard it quite a lot, but it's absolutely key. This cannot be driven by regulatory authority. We're there to enable it. The people who are driving the industry are the experts in it, and we're learning as we go as well. So, we did mention sandboxes and things. I think they're critical to enable us to fully appreciate and understand what it is that we're going to allow to spread out across the country. And it's one of those things where to see the success that's happening down in some of our projects in the west of Ireland, the success that's happening in Dublin as well, and then everybody wants a part of it, and this is where it starts to grow exponentially as well. But the point I think Colin made is that focusing on the projects is where you learn, and it grows from there. I think that's the best way. We can talk technically about the subjects, and I'll point you to the person in the audience who would know more about the geospatial awareness stuff that you were talking about. Will be Enda, who will not stop talking about it over a cup of coffee.
That's great. But I mean, basically, from the three authorities, the message is the same, right? Get the project together, bring all the stakeholders, industry and authority at all layers together, make that a success, and then others will come because they want to replicate the success, and from there kind of you spread. Like this is all your experience in the UK, in Switzerland, in Ireland. Yeah. That's the way we do this.
I don't want to be cheesy, but like if you build it, they will come. You know, anybody remember that movie? You know? Am I the only older person here? I'm with you.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, from your perspective, Marielies, because you are more on the economic development side of things, right? So, you know, I'm curious to understand, you know, of course we hear from the regulators and they say we need to have projects. So I'm curious to understand from you if you have experiences where like projects that are economically driven, that they can create benefits for the economy, have somehow helped you to overcome some of these regulatory challenges where you have a drive which is beyond just aviation regulation, etc., but it's really like, this project has an economic benefit and we need to make it happen, right? Do you have an experience of that, and how do you interact with your, you know, regulators, whether local or not, in driving this economic development project forward?
Yeah, we are working on different fields at the moment. Normally, if you're working in an economic development agency, you're more or less searching for companies, bringing them together with the right partners, and then get the project going. And we realized that we have to just take a step back in these drone projects. The first projects have been very like, we would like to fly in the next months, we would like to increase our business very fast, and we realized in this topic, it's so complicated, it's not going to happen. So what we did, we first did a step back and started with some workshopping, finding the right stakeholders. Because the previous speakers all said you need to bring the right stakeholders on the table. But to do so, you first need to understand what are your stakeholders in your area, what are the relevant people. And we realized there are more questions than answers at the moment. But we are now at a stage where we did workshopping, defined our questions, answered some of the first questions, and now we are doing the sandbox projects. And there's one project that I would like to talk about, which is called, if you translate it, City Community, City Country Drone, it's called. And that is one of the successful examples of drone projects. It's not implemented in downtown of Berlin, but it's in the surrounding area Brandenburg. And that is a project they decided to include, for example, the local politics before they even started the project. So they built a project exactly for this area to get everybody on the same page. So they had the mayor in their advisory board, they had the local politics, they had people living in the area, and they are taking goods from the local market and flying it to the surrounding area, because there are villages that don't have a supermarket left. They have done a very good communication with the public. Invited a lot of press, answered all questions. There have been some questions that have not been very nice, some questions where they said, we really don't need that here, you're from the big city, bringing us a technology that we really don't want. And they answered these questions very honest, and that is something that worked out pretty well. So, and these projects are not in downtown Berlin at the moment, but they give a chance to get experiences, to see how the drone is flying, how loud is the drone, and how do the people really react if a drone is coming. So I think that is an interesting point, starting point. Yeah, so sometimes step back and see what's happening at the moment.
I mean, I'm curious also from you, Sergio, because I mean, speaking about projects, you actually built a stratoport. Like, you know, it doesn't get more project than that, right? So I'm curious to know, because when you do something like that, I don't think people appreciate the complexity of actually building a stratoport in an area where there are already existing airports, you know. And as you mentioned, you have the Gobierno de Canarias, you have the Cabildo de Fuerteventura, you have the local ANSP, you have ENAIRE. And I'm sure you have to navigate all of these challenges, like, to make this thing a reality. So I'm curious to understand from you, like, what have you learned in the process of creating a stratoport? And of course, we are still learning on how to put it up in operation.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, what are all the hurdles that you already had to overcome, and what are the ones that you see coming in the future?
Many things to do yet, but yeah, we have learned that it's a very, very slow process. It's very difficult to find all those stakeholders, as our colleagues have been said. But also, we have been having conversations, as you said, with ENAIRE, with AESA, with local ANSP, with civil aviation. Sometimes at higher levels, political levels, and also technical levels. And we have realized that sometimes not everyone inside those organizations are aware of our projects and the willingness of the government that they will want to push. So some people are not aware of what we are doing inside the same organization. So the first thing to do is to make everyone know about it. There is a very good predisposition from all the entities we have been working on, but there is still so much work to do. So. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Colin, I mean, we are preparing for the future demands, right? On the airspace itself, and I'm sure. Okay, you have done all these projects. We are learning from all of them, but I'm pretty sure there are some common themes that are emerging, right? Things that we are learning that will apply for all of the different future projects. Like you said, it's not about only doing one thing and then not learning from the mistake and do the mistake again, right? So one of the things is like, what are some specifics, like in terms of regulatory changes, reforms, and maybe even technology infrastructure that you need to implement that you see emerging from the various projects that you're involved with?
So I think from a regulatory perspective, I think we've acknowledged that. So from a lot of the projects we've seen go through our sandbox process, is where those gaps are, and then the work needs to be done to fill those gaps from a policy perspective, so we can actually start to mobilise. And there's a regulatory pathway rather than a dead end. Someone has to, we have to overcome that hurdle every time, and then we have to, get to the next blocker, and we overcome that. So those regulatory pathways are going to be key to sort of getting more momentum, and the build it and they will come analogy. People will see that, and actually the process will take shorter and shorter, and it become more streamlined. At the same time, we need to be developing those policies. I think from a technology perspective, and it's something that sort of is close to my heart, and my team has just taken on responsibility for, is the SWIM element and the data exchange. I think, like, long term, if we are going to get to that sort of everything anywhere, and that all the benefits that we know around sustainability and efficiency for the big airspace users, but actually dynamic use of airspace so that we can get more people flying at the lower levels, the reliable and robust exchange of data is going to be key to that. And I think the challenge, there are many challenges in that. We have got a bit of an analog system around CNS at the moment, and actually, most of the stakeholders, the new stakeholders, are very digital, and we need to understand where that works. But I think for the longer term solution, and until we unlock that, until we get some drive in that area, we will continue to it will be people with radios controlling rather than the system deciding where people are, and that's the only way to unlock the true potential.
I mean, and Larissa, you are implementing the system, right? This is the use space approach is somehow that, like digitizing, like removing the radios somehow from the equation, which is not easy, as I learned to do. And but also I think is digitizing the interactions, right? Again, as you mentioned, from the little city which is there that creates a geo zone, and the geo zone is then managed by the system. So, like, are you already there when it comes to technology, when it comes to the policy that enables this technology to exist? You mentioned the airspace, that's one thing, but there is also the underlying technology and the use space functioning system there, right? What have you learned from you're ready to launch, right? So what have you learned in terms of this modernization of policy and infrastructure that allows that to happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think with the use space implementation, we've learned plenty of things, but I guess I can share 2 points with regards to that. Also, that brings us back to that governance discussion. I think it's mainly also a communication challenge, so a physical communication challenge when it comes to the interaction with local and regional governments. So we have seen the use-based airspace volume, so a volume from north to south from about 10 kilometers, and west-east 18 kilometers, encompassing 2 cantons and about 30 municipalities that should become fully digitalized. And I remember when we started that project 1.5, 2 years ago, we were all super motivated. We went strictly to the cantons, to the regional authorities, and also to the local authorities, to the cities, and to communicate about that project and all the benefits that it will bring. But we learned that we completely overwhelmed them with the complexity of that project. So I think it's a critical decision you need to take. First and foremost, how do you communicate the benefits and probably also the risk of such a huge project? And when do you take who on board? So we started a very good collaboration with the city of Zurich. So they're super helpful in the course of the implementation of the use-based airspace, and also the canton, so the regional authorities in Zurich. And they are also super supportive when it comes to the communication to the municipalities. So I think really, after all, it's just a communication challenge we needed or still need to tackle with that regard. And I think that brings us back to a general questions. And if anybody has an answer in that panel, please tell me. So we're constantly asking ourselves, so how do you onboard people and society and take up their needs, their expectations without hampering innovation? I think that's a super critical balance you need to find. And a question that we need to ask ourselves as regulators day by day.
Thank you. And I'm curious, really as a follow-up for you, Paul, because we mentioned integrating the cities, how do you bring them on board? And yesterday we had Tom from the City Council, and we were talking about city planning. Now, you are head of aviation infrastructure. That typically doesn't necessarily include city planning and city infrastructure, right? But now I have heard from people, this is becoming more of a reality. Like you are kind of deploying use-based services, you're deploying drone delivery services, and the cities are starting to learn, hey, perhaps I need to start to plan for drone delivery hubs from little, call it vertiport, or as Bob says, car parks, whatever. So is there anything there that you, as the head of aviation infrastructure, are starting to observe changing or emerging, that things that you have not dealt with before from the project that you're being involved with?
So we actually do deal with planning authorities because, part of the remit will be aerodromes, and aerodromes have to be safeguarded, protected, so obstacles, various things like that. Instrument flight procedures, if they go the wrong way, or what the general population might think is the wrong way, we get noise complaints and various things like that. So we have a well-established mechanism for discussing with planning authorities, aviation infrastructure overlaying the ground-based infrastructure as well, and trying to minimise the impact on that. So we've learned those. Well, I'd like to think we've learned those lessons, not to say we won't make mistakes going forward in that regard. But that has set up the relationships with the local governance and the councils as well. So what we've seen then is that through the discussions about the possibilities and the projects that we've had, it's the awareness that's growing, and with that awareness comes the possibilities and the opportunity that's there. So we position ourselves to be make ourselves available to ensure that people understand who we are. We're not as big as the UK, so there's that element as well where people know it's the IAA, and they pretty much they know who they can contact there. So it's really getting the information out there with the local authorities as well, and building on the relationships that we already have. It's true again, not just with local authorities, but different governmental departments as well. I think one of Colin's first slides, he had a list of stakeholders there. It's a huge, like every particular government has the department for this, that, and the other thing, and they all seem to have a sense that they have a stake in what's happening. So one of the key things is identifying who just likes to know what's going on and who's actually a dependency, who's actually a stakeholder that has a decision-making dependency on what's going on. And so you sift out who is just for information only and who are the people that need to be sitting in the room as well. And again, that's building on our experience over the years with manned aviation as well. It's what's encouraging is that the opportunity is seen by the local governments. They're very forward-looking. So, in I think investment at the higher level of government in disruptive technologies and trying to push it out there, and that filtering down to the universities as well. So you get this innovation developing and the eagerness coming from young people as well. We had an event at the military airfield there. We brought 5,000 14, 15-year-old students, school students in, and the excitement was just, I felt invigorated after as well. So it's kind of capturing that and utilising that. And so these are the people who are going to be, buying houses in the next few years. So the expectation will be for societal acceptance that they already want to have the services that can be available through the technologies that we're discussing here. So what have I learned? Just, don't go off left field. Build on what you know works, and then modify it slightly as you go along, building on the experience.
Thank you. And I mean,
left field is that way, isn't it?
Yeah, no, left field that way, exactly. We have a lot of questions, for the audience already. Before going there, I wanted to ask one question to Marielies related to the fact that, again, because you're not an authority, but you're trying to support the projects, in developing themselves. Have you observed particularly critical touch points where these interactions between the city, the regional, the state is difficult? Not specific now to Berlin because there is a problem there, but in your experience, are there areas where, for example, the regulator should be looking more in detail compared to other areas? What is your experience with that?
I did not identify any touch points that are super critical. What I realized is that the drone topic has not been that high on the priority list that I would assume it has been. Should have been a long time ago. So, but after a lot of information, answering questions, the doors are open now, which makes me very happy, and I can realize that I'm getting a lot of questions now. I'm getting a lot of mails from different touch points in this ecosystem to answer questions. And that gives me the feeling that we did a step into the right direction. So, but that is something that you always have to keep in mind, especially in a complicated ecosystem like Berlin, like bigger city everywhere, that you cannot assume that everybody has the same priorities as you have yourself. For me, I'm just doing aerospace. For me, it's the top topic. But for other areas, it's just not. So you always have to open that door again and again and again, and one time it will stay open. And I have the feeling we are at that point now.
Thank you very much. One last question before we go to the question from the audience is around the opportunities of developing this stratoport operations, space operations. I mean, when Fuerteventura decides I want to build a stratoport, and I want, but what is your vision for that? Because I don't think everybody really understands what are those operations? What are you trying to achieve? What is HAPS like? And what is the future? And why is so important that we modernize the airspace? Of course, intuitively one can understand that if you want to fly from flight level 0 all the way up to flight level 60 or 70, whatever, there is a lot of airspace that you need to cross, and this has to be modernized, right? But again, give us a bit of a flavor of what is it you are trying to achieve there in Fuerteventura with the startup port.
Well, we have been focusing on missions, in order to have end customers that have a specific need. For example, we have been seeing in the last years that the increasing of forest fires. We also had the volcano in La Palma. So we bet for this technology, the HAPS technology, because they can give us a permanent, they are resilient flight, persistent flight, and they can be permanent position over an area, specific area. And there in the Canaries, we have many reasons to build such an infrastructure because, we have good weather conditions, many sun hours per year. We are the second largest island in the archipelago, but we have just 120,000 inhabitants, so it's very low, densely populated. We also, as an island, we are covered by sea, by the ocean. So in order to perform these operations, it could be kind of easy to take off from startport and no overflight population go to the ocean and do this climb until the operation level. But in order to do so, it is very important to construct or to build this airspace in the surroundings. So In order to do that, we have been talking with NIRE, we have been talking with AESA, but we also have launched a tender now that actually Murzilli and together with CATEC and Navia won. And this tender aims to analyze the compatibility of the airspace surrounding the stratoport, together with Fuerteventura Airport and also with the Canary Islands airspace, and to find different alternatives to find these airspace structures in order to these platforms to go up there. So we are focusing on the missions, and we are trying to build the whole ecosystem in order to be able to do that.
Thank you. Thanks for the shout out, by the way. That's appreciated. Okay, let's go quick on the question. I see there is a lot of voting. You know, there is dynamism in the room. So, like, first of all, it's like the obvious. I would say the obvious question to regulators. Like, look, companies are always faster than you are. Well, how can we learn faster? You know, and I guess on the fact that the company is faster than you, I think Colin gave a very good example. Like, I have to deal with 300,000 different things, and they are all interconnected. And if I want to change a little thing here, the whole castle moves away, right? But I think the key is, like, how can they help you learn faster? So if you would have a wish for the industry, how could that help you? Maybe for you three, the same question. Colin, you can start.
So I'd say actually it's quite a live discussion in the CA here at the moment. So I think it's true to say that we have been slow to adapt, and in certain areas across the authority, some areas have got a really good understanding of what's required, what the new user requirements are, and some haven't. And I think what we've tended to do is treat new users in the same way we treat traditional aviation. So we've asked them the same set of questions, and actually the data that we need them to provide might be completely different. So I think we need better communication is probably like I know that's a very obvious answer, but when, I won't talk about specific use cases, but I know like our inspectorate who are signing some of this off have asked questions because that's the question they ask. And then actually what they're trying to find out is this bit safe? And if you ask that question in a different way, I know from, being that sort of interaction with some of the new users and new companies, they would answer it in a completely different way. And I think it's that translation, speaking the same language and understanding. I think there is a little bit to say for some of the technology companies and the innovators where they can move fast. I think there is an understanding that's required there as well to say, well, this is the regulatory process you're stepping into, but we need to be better explaining that and as to why it takes so long and actually where the gaps are.
Super interesting because, I remember back in my times when I was in JAROS developing the SORA, and the SORA methodology, we had all these different terms and all of these different things that people didn't understand. And we ended up having to do a semantic model just to allow people to talk the same language, and we actually built it and it's in the document. And I really agree with you. Like, sometimes it's just that people speak different semantics for the same thing, and you just don't understand each other. Like, there is a kind of a translation, lost in translation kind of.
Can I have one follow-up?
Of course you can.
So that, from the UK perspective, so the team that I manage have been the only team in the UK to actually do an airspace change themselves. So they did that for Manchester low-level routes around a GA piece of work. We found that out doing that work. So that was, we were having to be the conduit between the airports, the stakeholders, and the CAA. And so as of last week, we are now pivoting that team to be that interaction for new stakeholders in the UK to then have that conduit into the inspectorate, into the people who do the airspace change, into the RPAS team, and actually using that experience to be the translators.
Yep. Yeah.
So hopefully that will see us move forward a bit faster.
Very interesting. Larissa, what is your wish? How can the industry help you?
Yeah, I fully agree with you, and I think one example I can mention here also where we were quite successful, I would say, in the context of use-based implementation was the building of a private-public partnership called Swiss Use-based Implementation back in the days when you still were with FOCA. But this was basically the body or the mean to make sure that we speak all the same language and also to make sure that we can do some demonstrations and some testings of new technologies. And it was a huge hub to learn from both sides, from the industry side, but also from the regulatory sides. And with those learnings, we were able to shape the regulatory framework and actually were able to come up with the first first airspace CONOPS, even long before the EU regulatory framework has been published. But this was only possible thanks to the close collaboration within that partnership with the industry. And we collaborating within that framework until today, actually, with the industry, more today on a USSP certification basis, but it's still a very important and crucial hub to learn from a regulatory perspective. At the same time, I think the industry is also has also some responsibilities, I would say, that we cannot underestimate, and possibly that also answers Thomas Eder's questions here below. So I think that you've mentioned that before. So we have a lot of things to do, a lot of different tasks on our table, and it's super hard or challenging from a regulatory perspective to reply to individual needs and expectations from the industry. I think industry is much more powerful when they're organized, when they organize their interests and their expectations to the regulators within an association or a group, an interest group. And I think that makes also the communication channel between the regulators and the industry more direct. And I don't think that it's the responsibility of a regulator to help industry to organize themselves. We expect from the industry that they get together on their own and address their challenges and needs that they have in a common collective voice directly to the regulators.
Thank you. Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with everything that's been said previously. Just to make the point that, you know, even though there are plenty of regulations out there, you know, within the sandboxes, we can modify the regulations to allow activities. But fundamentally, my ultimate responsibility is to ensure the airspace is within safety tolerable levels. So, you know, when things are innovating and we need to understand that the risk posed by the operation of that is within our safety tolerable levels. So how do we do that? So what we've done in Ireland as well is that there are industry representative bodies. So to try and get that communication, that common language, understanding what it is that I require from the applicant and how they should present it to me. That's conversations that we need to have with the body as a whole, because I know it's a horrible word, but we do need to try and harmonise the way people approach us and what they supply to us. If we have different approaches by everybody, then it's not going to be effective for the overall plan. So, you know, having industry representation doesn't have to be one body, it can be a number of bodies. This is reflected in manned aviation as well. You have a number of representative bodies that speak, and we have discussions with them about how things are. But that key thing is that when you're delivering something to us, showing that it is with the evidence supports that it's within the safety tolerable levels, I think is the key thing there, and a harmonised voice coming into us.
Thank you so much. Else. I can see this question is coming up, so I was ready to ask the one before, but now I need to ask this one. So, like, to any one of you, like, it's like the question is like, are you seeing progress on projects that you've been involved with, you know, in any capacity, from R&D all the way up to actual commercial operation? Do we have like success stories that any of you can share? And I mean, open for anyone to share any of the success stories if you are aware of them.
Take that?
Yes, please.
Yes, we do. We do. There are not many yet, but we do have, for example, a company that is doing drug deliveries for pharmacies, and they are implementing their first real network and delivering on a commercial side because they managed to get the certification for dangerous goods, which is very nice. We have a drone company that is in the security sector that has a commercial side, and we do have a company doing loading platforms for drones, and they are already earning money with their business as well. They are probably at least the first three ones I know of, maybe there are more. And some others are doing a very good progress, so I'm really hoping for them to do this step from research and development to a real business case.
Right. So some of the strategy works for those who are successful. Paul, please.
Yeah, so we have a number of deliveries taking place. So that all started off with testing with the vehicles, the reliability of the systems. Then how would we route? How many of the UAS could be controlled by one person? And all the various resilience that you would expect to be built in. And now they're operating commercially. So, I mean, that was a good starting point. And I think, perhaps if we came back next year or the year after, some of the projects that we have in relation to BV loss, autonomous BV loss, and various things like that. Some of the radars that's being developed for uncooperative drones and various things. That I think that we would have a bigger story to tell at the moment. We're still progressing along. We're still at a relatively immature point. But I'm very confident that story that we would tell in 24 months would be much better when we get back.
Excellent, thank you. The obvious question when you speak about U-Space, I mean, I would have asked myself, but like, okay, when is it going to be there? Like, when is it going to be open? Like, when can we fly?
The elephant in the room.
Yeah, of course. It's like, we know it's difficult. Now we understood why, but still the people want to know, like, okay, when can we go there?
Q2 2025.
Good. Done.
Said with such confidence.
Yeah. Very good. That's what you need. Thank you. You said it now, so you are on record.
Oh.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, it's a good answer. So you have 6 months to go. I mean, there is a follow-up question. Is what was the biggest problem? Actually, the question is, what is the biggest problem yet to be solved?
Yeah.
Can I ask you also what was the biggest problem to solve?
It's clearly the use-based airspace risk assessment. So we are still on that. With internal experts in FOCA and also external experts from Skyguide. And so the risk assessment workshops are finished, the CONOPS is there, and we had that in internal and external consultation, and we received about 200 something comments. Now our experts are on revising those comments, revising the CONOPS, and we have a final workshop by the end of this year, and then we should be finished. But we've learned a lot, of course, in that process, and I think one crucial element here again is speaking the same language. So we had different people in the room, all experts on their subject, but all talking different languages. And we clearly underestimated that element at the beginning. So it was quite a painstaking work also to bring everybody on the same page, on the same table, and discussing and make sure that everybody discusses the same topic or the same subject. And we are now quite optimistic that we see the first use-based airspace by Q2 next year, in Zurich.
Very good.
By the way, we are already working on the implementation of new use-based airspaces. So Zurich is not the end. So we are currently identifying other use-based airspace areas in Switzerland where's the need for drone-to-drone deconfliction. And maybe also to make you even more curious, so the Federal Council will publish a new drone strategy for Switzerland on 6th of December. So you see in that document the whole strategic outline of Switzerland when it comes to airspace modernization, use-based implementation, etc. And next to use-based implementation, I would say the full large-scale e-conspicuity mandate will also be another important, very, very important topic that will keep us busy for the upcoming years.
Thank you. That's a good one, but we don't have the time for that. There is a question about, I think it's from regulator side, but I generalize is why do you think drone companies think that they can move fast and break things instead of following the paper process? It's like the Elon Musk kind of problem that Elon is doing it, and so we are also able to do it. I can blow rockets and it's fine. Except you don't have his money. But why do you think it is? Like from your experience?
From my experiences, it's traditionally, people had a route into manned aviation and they went through licensing processes or whatever. And then, we came along with the UAS and we got people from tech industry. So, launch the app, see what happens, next upgrade. So it was a clash of two cultures that came. So we're trying to find that happy medium. For the tech people, it's like, why can't we do this? And then we fix it and move on. And for us, it's like, hang on a second, we need a safety case, we need evidence, we need to see the risk, monitor the risk. And so it's that clash of cultures that are there. So slowly we're being challenged and we're challenging them. So, obviously, the pace we're at the moment with the interactions we've had with the companies is that they've understood the environment that they've moved into and the safety criticality of it as well, and the effect that, you know, losses of aircraft would impact on societal acceptance, meaning that, you know, you have one particularly bad accident with your drone, and your industry is halted for a long time in that area, and, you know, then you'll have people that don't want to be there. So I think from our point of view, long history in risk management in aviation, and I think the understanding there is that it's actually beneficial to your operation, that if you take our approach as well. But there's definitely that entrepreneurial spirit, like, let's get it done, and, you know, we're there to not put the brakes fully on, but just to say, look, slow down a little bit and let's see. So that's my take on it. That's been my experience anyway. So,
Thank you. And I think we are at time. It's spot on 11. So thank you very much for this exciting conversation. There are more questions. Maybe we'll just keep them there and ask them to you in the future. But thank you very much. I think it was very, very good conversation. I at least learned a lot. So thank you very much. All right.